Okay.
Everybody set? Again, this meeting, the Ocean Island Port Authority is together for June 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Please stand for the pledge and then Commissioner Thorpe.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we do thank you for all of your many blessings. We thank you for this great country that we live in. We ask that you be with our leaders and help them make decisions for our country in the right way. And we're just grateful and thankful for the freedom that we have. Pray for our first responders and servicemen and women. Ask that you watch us and keep them safe. Be with us now as we have our meeting, and that you will give us wisdom and discernment in all that we do. Ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Jesse?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Hill.
Here.
Chairman Fullwood.
Present.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience. I have one. Ralph?
So my name is state name. Ross, 210 North 3rd Street, Daytona Beach, Florida, and I represent myself, no other entities. Looking at the Florida Special District Handbook from October of 2022, it states under financial emergencies on page 84, all local government entities, which include special districts, and this is a special district, are subject to review and oversight by the governor if any one of the following conditions occurs. One of those conditions is failure to pay uncontested claims from creditors within 90 days after the claim is presented as a result of lack of funds. It would appear from your financial statements and attending these meetings that OPA has not paid its attorneys for more than 90 days after they have presented their bills. The handbook goes on to say, which is also Florida statute, actions required when a financial emergency conditions occur or will occur. If any one of the above conditions occur or will occur, if action is not taken to assist the special district must notify the governor's office of the chief inspector general and notify the joint legislative auditing committee. And I was just curious if OPA has made these notifications, and if not, why not?
Okay. Thank you very much.
You don't intend to answer the question?
No, I'm not gonna answer the question right now. Our attorney's not here, and PR will ask you when the last time we said our attorney.
Just paid them, you sign a check to them for
Mhm.
$35,000.
So we are paying that.
So your payments are up to date?
No, I didn't say they were up to date, and we worked out that with the attorney, but we have paid, and we're paying them on the regular. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Moving right along here. Approval of amendments. We want to take them together or separate? All right, May 10th. Yeah. Motion to approve and seconded to May 10th monthly meeting minutes. Any discussion?
I just have a
Yeah.
question about one of them. So there's a statement read. It's in italics on page 2. And I was just curious if that was actually a statement from Mr. Bukowski, or if that was actually a request from the board. Because I thought that was a request from the board.
Or I'm not sure where you are.
It says Mr. Petrowski asked the chairman to read a statement
Yes,
in his absence.
Yes.
But I thought that that request actually came from the board. So we were doing that in the one day. Is that right?
yes, but he asked me to read the statement that he made.
But the substance of it was something that.
Was something that the board, yes.
Okay. But it says, I would like to request. So is he
Well,
requesting or are we requesting?
No, I was requesting on behalf of the board.
Okay, so do we correct it to say, to read the chairman's statement? To be your statement?
If that's what you want to do, sure.
I'll revise it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All in favor of accepting the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. May 24th. Your motion? Motion approved. Thank you. Take my- Motion made and seconded to approve the May 24th meeting. Any discussion? None, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Carried. Our attorney is up north somewhere with a client. Apologizes for not being here, but he'll be here at the next meeting. Board count report, Pierre.
So in your package, you have the monthly treasurer's report for May. So it shows that you received the quarterly fee payment from the operator.
Let me hold up just a minute right there. Patrick does have a report on here. If anybody looking through that have any questions about it? I don't know if we can answer too much, but if you have any questions about any of that, I guess you can contact me. Can't see anything on here that we need to talk about. All right, go ahead, Pierre, I'm sorry.
So yeah, so you have in your packet the treasurer's report for May. We received the quarterly fee payment from National Terminals, and we received the grant reimbursement for the master plan reimbursement. So we have one more we're paying. I think we were signing checks tonight for the master plan for the last payment for the master plan. So essentially, all the money has been spent, and we'll submit that for reimbursement, 50% reimbursement. So, other than that, as I said, no. So we continue, we made a payment obviously to the, as funds become available, we make the payment to the attorney. Everything else is standard, nothing unusual or anything. So, and then Customs House, obviously, all the expenses are reimbursed by the port operator. So, and we're considering what to do with that page and going forward, since Customs House now is much different than what it used to be a couple years ago. So, and then obviously the balances in the accounts. So the operating account will drop, like I said, significantly. We're writing a couple big checks tonight from that account. Be about $60,000 written out of that account tonight. The maintenance funds and that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for the financial report?
Just to answer the question that was raised by Commissioner Nelson. Citizen Nelson. Hasn't there been a time in the past where we had to certify to the state because of our financial situation? And could you explain why it doesn't?
Sure. So yes, we were. Yes. Probably 5-6 years ago, we were before Worldwide Terminals took over, we were in a financial emergency. In other words, our equity was negative. And that was because of depreciation and other things going on. So each year we would get a letter from the Florida Auditor General asking us to certify why we were in a financial emergency, why it was under control. We said, again, essentially it was about investments and cash flow. Cash flow was positive, but because of depreciation, because large amount of depreciation, large amount of assets versus our income, our equity was negative. When Worldwide Terminals took over, obviously they retired $10 million of debt that was on our balance sheet, which essentially removed the financial emergency. So that's the history. Yes, we've answered those concerns before from the Auditor General. We are no longer in the financial emergency in that our equity is now positive and has been, as I said, mainly from the paying of the $10 million, actually $15 million worth of debt that was moved from our balance sheet when
Sam.
no, not Savage. Worldwide Terminals. Sorry, yeah, it was Worldwide Terminals. When Worldwide took over Nassau Terminals, and we retired the debt, and like I said, it was approximately $15 million worth of debt that was removed from our balance sheet, and it's now we're in a positive financial position. So as far as the question of attorney's fees, why it's not, is because our attorney has agreed to this payment plan. He understands that the funds that we're using to pay these bills, and he said that in a meeting, because one of the reasons we've gotten behind is because, so the ARPA funds, we are essentially submitting your payroll. That's the only thing we're submitting, right? So the reimbursement that we received from ARPA, we decided that we wanted to pay the master plan and finish the master plan. And so that's how we got behind on legal fees. He was okay with that. And as I said, we continue, and that's where we continue as we manage the ARPA funds, but we only receive $11,000 worth of ARPA funds, hence why we're making. So we received our January, our first quarter reimbursement from ARPA, and we turn around and pay approximately $30,000 in legal fees at a time. He's agreed with that. Again, there's no financial emergency because these are agreed payment terms. It was never going to be paid unless the funds were available from ARPA, which is why I also sent a memo a couple of weeks ago when those ARPA funds run out. Obviously, we have no means to pay any legal fees beyond that. And so we need to be careful to make sure that we don't cross that line where, no, we can't pay. We have no method to pay these legal fees. So yeah, it's under control. It was agreed by the attorney that this was the method we were going to pay, and actually he in a meeting agreed that we should go ahead and do the master plan and finish the master plan and divert funds to the master plan as opposed to paying the legal fees so that we can get the master plan completed.
And so it's his idea and we agreed to it. That's the way it's working right now.
So there's no financial emergency because it's an agreed to plan. It's not, it's not like we received an invoice and we just haven't talked to them, or we have agreed a plan to pay these.
No point that we ever not pay it.
Right. And we're making sure, obviously, and we're making sure that we have the money to pay the bills that we incur. That's why I said the memo saying there will be a time where we can't afford to incur these anymore, and we need to be careful of that line.
And of course, we wouldn't be in legal financial distress if we hadn't been sued by two government entities. That's why we're in this mess right now. But, I think that's going to be taken care of soon. Exactly. Make sure we got a plan for him. Move forward.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
So the last piece for my section. So what you have, so you should have gotten a new one. Obviously, there was one in your packet. I've just prepared. So version 1 was in your packet. Version 2 is the one I just distributed to you. No huge changes. I did, the main thing is we added obviously the rent for the PEC Center, which is to be discussed here tonight, but I wanted to make sure you saw that. As I said, and then we did up after speaking, David and I had a meeting, and we did up the harbor admin fee and bunkering a little bit for what he thought was going to be coming in next year. And then I lowered the inflation rate to 4%. So it's right now 4.3%. So it seems to be definitely the inflation rate slowing down. So
remember both, and obviously the rent at the Peg Center, you know, is essentially will go up in September or whatever, but whatever the inflation factor is. So, you know, the lease that we're signing today, the rent is only good for till the end of this fiscal year, till September, I think. So, and then it goes up by inflation factor.
And the reason is because we're coming in an off cycle and.
Right. They want it per fiscal year. Right. So, yeah, so, and obviously there's an automatic increase based on the inflation index. And so, and each fiscal year it does that for them. That's the way they manage their contract. So obviously I think we have so this is just this is the second version, but this is just a draft, taking what we spent last year. Obviously, you know, kind of, as you can see, it's still positive at the bottom. So, you know, obviously we need your input. I think we have at the end of the month, we have a scheduled workshop to go through in detail and, you know, kind of where we want to change and what we want to change and et cetera, et cetera. So this is just to start you thinking along the lines of what should we be doing next year with the budget. So.
Yeah, we're not gonna discuss in depth the budget tonight. Just wanted to get this information out to you, so you can have any questions you have for Pierre, any thoughts you might have for the budget workshop when we have it. But we can talk about anything up until that point. But we're not gonna get into a great deal of discussion about what we need to do. Mr.
Chairman, if I might,
Yes, sir.
since you mentioned the revision to harbor administration and bunkering fees, you know, that's my guesstimate. I've met with Bush and his team and asked them, based on their forecasts of activity coming up in the next year, to give that another look, see and see where that is. So hopefully by the time we have our workshop, we'll have that number either confirmed or adjusted.
I noticed you got 4%. CPI on here.
Yeah, I originally, the first one had 5,
Said 5.
Yeah. but I looked at it this morning, it's only 4.3. So well, yeah. I hear egg prices are crashing. So.
Any questions for Pierre about what was presented to us here for the budget? You know, we're running a tight budget. Maybe able to snip some things here and there. We get into that in depth, a budget workshop.
June 28th. Yeah.
Questions? Anyone? Okay.
That's all I have.
Is that all you got?
Yeah.
All right, David, your board executive director report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize for not having a written report in the files. Been a busy few weeks, a lot of things going on, so. At the last meeting, we were authorized to put together an RFP for the real estate brokerage and advisory services. We did that, we advertised it, including a direct email to all the members of the Amelia Island Board of Village group. The RFP asked for their responses by the end of June. So we can make a recommendation at our July meeting, hopefully, which group to move forward with. So hopefully we will get a good response to that RFP. I won't talk about office space right now. We spent a lot of time on that over the last week, but that's an agenda item, so we'll talk about it. When it comes to that, we did also have our request for the designation of Port District roads. The resolution that we asked the city to approve was approved unanimously at the last city council meeting, or commission meeting. So we're now working with the DOT to produce those signs and the city to help install them. And so I think that will be a tremendous
improvement and hopefully so people want to the folks that use those roads. Had a really good meeting today, about half a day today with our consultants that are putting together the resiliency plan that I spoke about a couple times. You got that? At the meeting, we had our consultant team in addition to Kelly Gibson, city planning director, folks from West Rock, the railroad, and Butch's team, to review, the information that they've already gathered so far as existing conditions, and then to start talking about how the plan is going to go moving forward. The city is in the process of retaining their own consultant to do the city's resiliency plan. And the key to all of this is ultimately, the key to all this is ultimately to go after federal grant dollars, that are out there for improvements to help with resiliency, whether it's weather related or otherwise. The beauty of it is under the Protect Act, the Federal Protect Act, if our plan is in alignment with the state plan and also in alignment with the city plan, the matching requirement for those grants is 93% federal, 7% local. And local is state, Port Authority, operator, West Rock, railroad, whoever wants to kick into that kitty. So if we do it right, both we and the city can really benefit from getting large projects done with very little back requirement. So we want to make sure that every step of the way we're go in alignment, or the city, the state has just recently issued their draft plan. It's out for public comment. As soon as I get the link, there's a link online where you can send comments. I'll make sure that I'm distributing to you guys if you want to make any direct comments you can. But our consultant is making sure that what we're doing is in alignment with the state plan, and by incorporating the city into our effort, their consultant to make sure that our plan is consistent with the city. So one of the things that I talked with Ms. Gibson about was having a joint workshop, like a better term, between our commission and the city commission, perhaps in July, allow our consultant teams together to update everybody in terms of what we're doing with the planning process, answer any questions. And so I think Ms. Gibson was going to work on some dates that the city commission will be available. So I get that, we'll circulate it here and figure out a time that makes sense for both bodies. Let's be excited. Yeah. Also had the opportunity earlier this week to speak to the small group of the Island Council for the Chamber of Commerce. And I've been invited back to speak for the leadership Nassau class for their schedule. So trying to get out as much as we can to the local organizations to present, what folks now what to do. A lot of other things in process, but I'll leave it at that. I also want to let you know, tomorrow morning I'll be leaving for the mountains for a few days, but I will have my phone and computer with me, so please feel free to reach out. I'll be back on Monday. I'll have a list. Do there have any questions?
Any questions for David? Are you the one to talk to Michelle Stein about field trip?
I guess her husband was at the chamber meeting, and the question came up about whether or not we do field trips for schools and other groups that may be interested. I reported that we've had conversations with the operator about trying to do more outreach. 3911 is pretty easy to do now with security and the operation going on with security and safety concerns and how we do that effectively. So we're working with Butch and his team to figure out, I know they're doing some work, which we talked about with the school, St. Michael's, trying to do some things with the school and the students there. So
that's a work in progress. I have been working with Butch and his communications team on trying to develop a broader communications plan for not only what there's activities, but the operating to get out, all the good news about things that are going on. With provide more education, so that's not good.
It would definitely be advantageous for us to the senior high school kid, show them what job opportunities are there.
Absolutely. So we had a pretty robust program when I was at Jacksonville doing those efforts. Again, it was a much bigger team, much bigger operation, a little bit easier to manage. So, we're just having to work with those to figure out a way that makes sense for us here, but it's something that we all agree is something that we need to do more.
I think we need to get the word out to all the schools, senior schools. That we're open to doing field trips before. Right, you get an idea of what we do down there, maybe some one person.
That's what. Mr. Chairman, we did that.
Yeah.
At Worldwide Terminal, we would every January, in preparation for the seniors graduating, we would invite them out. I dealt with Andrew Powell at Nassau County School, and he brought his group out, and it was a success across the board. We consider joining Homeland Security CBP, so it was pretty much a job fair, but they got to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
The day that we actually done it, they brought the big lift in where the mobile harbor was discharged that day. So it was a good illustration of the jobs, what was, entailed in them. So, but I would definitely make sure that we run that past the superintendent.
Yeah.
She's full support with that. Like I said, Andrew done it for a couple of years before he retired.
I'll be seeing her Tuesday night, so I'll talk to her about it.
That would be
Do you
good.
think it'd be advantageous for us to do it earlier in the year though, before they get into making up their minds what they want to do after they graduate? A lot of them will petition for scholarships to go to college. And there are a lot of scholarships out there. I think some may be able to get into school using scholarship come into the board industry.
It was amazing to me that the majority of those seniors that were on the docks that day commented that they were not planning to go to college.
Yeah.
They wanted to go right into the job field. And listen, the waterfront is a wonderful place. If you can get in, it's a wonderful place to begin a career and,
I know on the job training is good, but where would they get any other like training? What schools offer things like that?
a lot of your stevedore companies have companies that come in and train for rigging. I know we had, at Worldwide Terminal, we had many of the rigging companies that sell us the cables and the lashing and stuff that they would actually bring an instructor in to train and certify your gearmen and the guys that work on the vessels. So there's opportunities out there for these young folks that want to, and that's always been a passion of mine because I was a product of that. When I got out of high school and came back from the sheriff's office, that's where I went. And after 43, almost 44 years, I could say that program was a success. So anything that I can do for that, I want to get involved in that because it's a big shot in the arm for the industry.
Well, I'll talk to her next week and see if she can recommend the best time of year to start doing some tours. We'll put that together. Get it done.
That'd be
Great.
anything you could do, Butch, would help too, because there was some real interested young folks there that you could pick up and they can start careers there.
But you have to develop a plan how to go about making sure safety, keep it safe and for the kids to be able to maybe get off the bus and just look at a certain point, not walk around by themselves, get control. And we'll put that together and get that done. I think it's a great thing. Okay. But you're up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hope you're all well this evening. Like to report, and happy to do so, that May was up from April. All the way across the board, we had more containers through with Summers Isle. We had 3,879 ton of cardboard come through, 9,100 ton of pulp. Dockage days was at 8. We had rail cars at 109, and average truckloads in and outbound was 24. On this report, with it actually would look a little bit better. We had a Yucatec vessel that came in right at the end of the month, and it actually finished the morning of the 1st, so it'll actually roll into June. We are expecting a hearty June coming in with what's scheduled, and look forward to servicing all those customers.
Yeah, Bragg trends was a lot better.
Yeah, it's getting there. I'll tell you, our team is just doing a magnificent job with unloading. They've got it down to a science. It looks like a machine working out there these days, and we're really proud of the team members that we have out there working.
Any potential for new business?
Yes, and while I'm here, I'd like to take the opportunity, if I may, I've been talking about the man, the myth, the legend for a couple months now, and this is Matt McPhail. Matt joined our team here with Savage as our senior commercial developer 6 weeks ago. Yeah, and Matt comes, if you wouldn't mind.
Matt, come on up.
Introduction, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Nice to meet you all. Matt McPhail. I joined Savage April 1st. Prior to joining Savage, I was with the stevedoring terminal operating company called Federal Marine Terminals. I was with them for 17 years. Private company ownership decided to sell FMT, and I was fortunate enough to sign on with Savage and work here with the Port of Fernandina and our other operations. So looking forward to growing the business and collaborating with you all.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to have you. Thank you.
Oh.
So Matt's chasing quite a few new opportunities. Something that I would go ahead and mention now because it's public. We did have another large acquisition here within Transportation Infrastructure Partners. Within the last few weeks, we purchased a company by the name of Dupuy, D-U-P-U-Y. And we've now became the second largest distributor of green coffee beans in the United States. We also do tea and sugar. So that organization it's based out of New Orleans, where there's 10 operations. There's 3 in Houston, Texas. There's 5 in Jacksonville and 1 in Charleston. So we're starting to just see the first off the VP of our operation in Jacksonville, and some of the others are traveling up to New York to meet their customers. New York's kind of a mecca for trading with coffee. And we're hearing that there's some potential opportunity of some coffee coming through Port of Fernandina via Vietnam. There's customers interested. We look to have some warehousing opportunities at our Yulee location to this, and some trucking opportunities. So some good synergies we're starting to see right immediately, and we're just starting to scratch the tip of the iceberg. So we're very excited about that and the opportunities that it may help enhance what we do at the Port of Fernandina.
Coming in by ship and going out by truck or where?
The business specific to Fernandina more than likely would be, well, both. Yeah, it travels by truck, travels by rail once it comes in to the port.
just dependent upon the customer and the destination.
Could you spell that name again?
DUPUY. French.
About the logistics part of it, you can be able to handle it all right at our facility.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think we'd have much problem. That stuff stacks well. So I don't think we'd face any issues. There's no environmental risk. There's no hazard associated. I have a couple cups of Joe every morning and I'm still here. So I think we'd be all right.
It smells good too. And
Yeah, it does.
Like Maxwell plant, yeah.
Well, that's one of our big customers there. There's not a tremendous amount of smell when it's in a green bean form.
Yeah, of course.
But once it goes to roasting and grinding, it gets pretty aromatic, that's for sure.
Good deal.
Yeah.
What else you got for us?
I think that's all I got this evening.
Any questions for Butch?
I know the city is going through a parking plan discussion right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have contacts with the city to coordinate the parking?
Yes, ma'am. I have the best contact. Yep, and I feel like we're aligned. Yeah, working hand in hand on that.
So my understanding is that the spaces in front of the warehouses would be designated port parking only, or what's the plan for what is currently on-street parking in front of warehouses?
Right now, what happens for the most part is it's all us throughout the day, and then as the evening transpires, it kind of makes a shift to Wicked Bow. We're in competition somewhat with the new apartments that are being built there south of us. But the intent is to put some designated parking places along that aisle that will allow some parking there from 4 p.m. to midnight. We're leaving those parking places spaced off from the turn radiuses to try to help assist with not having an incident with a truck and a vehicle. And there will be signs posted to make people aware of that.
For all the residents in those apartment complexes and that park on the road.
They kind of take up and alongside of Warehouse 3, is where they're.
So that section's not paved though.
It's not.
So that would just have injuries.
Yeah, that one there, there's a little more cost associated with it, but I think what we are working towards is getting it leveled, more aesthetically pleasing, and perhaps put some bollards in where and others aren't backing into the warehouse. That's a big part of the plan for that area right there.
And the public meetings to discuss it that are scheduled, or is it just? It's just kind of this point in the planning stage.
I believe that's being taken care of with the city commission.
Do you know when the meeting is going to be held after the vote?
I do not. No, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Butch? Thank you, Butch. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's go to old business, OPA financials, OPA funds. Commissioner Hill, is that you? Agenda item?
Yes, I requested to add this to the agenda in response to the financial email that we received from here about ARPA funds being committed to legal fees. And I just wanted to, hear what we paid out in those legal fees and then what's committed and what's our run rate, what are we expected to run out.
So, we already talked about, so actually we're receiving $11,000 from ARPA that we used for legal fee payment
How much is that?
of the ARPA funds. There's 303,000 right now. So I think the budget has 200. So we expect to do at least one more, not two more reimbursements before the end of the fiscal year. Like I said, that $11,000 is what we have to pay legal fees. Right now, last month's legal fees were 15,000, 14,000.
Somewhat.
Somewhere about. So, I don't have the exact number, but that was for May of 2020. 2023, so that we just received over the fees still. So I think the memo that I sent out discusses the fact that obviously our funds have to be dispersed by December of 2024. So obviously, and in the budget is $120,000. That's the maximum of legal fees, back pay legal fees that we'll be able to pay. It said approximately $11,000. Should be a little bit more than that, but that's budgeted $10,000. So, so the memo that I sent out was, to discuss that at some point, we're not going to have funds and to obviously to make the commissioners and obviously the attorney aware that, once we get past that point, all we have is what's in the fixed fee budget, right? What's in the budget, right? Which is, well, and that's for us to decide when the budget time comes of how we're going to allocate those dollars, right? So once we pass the available ARPA funds, that $10,000, $11,000 a month, that's going to be available for ARPA funds. Once we owe more than we know we're going to be able to collect from ARPA, we have no more funds available to fund legal fees.
So of that 300,000, how much is spoken for? With the bills that are approved.
Of legal fees. Right now, I think we're down to about $75,000 in legal fees still due, because we just made a $30,000 payment, obviously. So, and that includes the May invoices, but we won't have another $30,000 reimbursement for another 3 months, right? So whatever the legal fees are for the next 3 months will be added to that $77,000. So
Didn't we just get a reimbursement from FMLT for?
No, not yet.
We just submitted that?
They will, it's coming, yes. It just got approved today.
right, so obviously those, once we get it from IT, those will go to state. Obviously FMIT is not included. There is a cap on, I think there is a cap on total that we can receive from FMIT as far as legal fees. So obviously that money is not included in our analysis right now for what's outstanding. Obviously that adds a few more months of legal fees that we've been incurred, and then we'll have the funds to pay. So we're monitoring the situation, make sure we don't go over the amount. And, kind of obviously again, because we just processed the $28,000 credit from the legal from
legal.
the credit for the hourly rate.
The credit, total, yeah.
So obviously that, again, that adds more time to of legal fees that we can incur and know that we can pay them. So I don't know if that answered your question.
So subtracting $75,000 from 303, that leaves us 228. Are there any other commitments?
So
that
you have to be careful.
Yeah.
So we could only access to pay legal fees for $11,000 a month.
Mhm.
So the rest of the money is earmarked to pay for David Kaufman.
Mhm.
If David Kaufman goes away, we can't access that money. Okay, we can only for our general, we can only submit the wages of the commissioners, which is, I said, $11,000 a month. So if we have $11,000 a month, we have from now until December 2024. Okay, so the maximum amount of legal fees that we can get between now and December 24, that's all the legal fees that we can have. So that would be $200,000.
You said earlier we were paying for legal fees.
No, $2,500 is what's in the budget, and so we've started to pay each month $2,500. So we weren't paying anything at all unless we have funds available. So Patrick asked us to make it his job easier if we submitted a regular amount. The amount that we've been using has been $2,500. That's the regular payment that we have available. So we've started to make a $2,500 payment, just like we pay David, me, that regular payment of $2,500.
So is there sufficient funding for the coming year to fund the court director position? Is there sufficient money with the legal costs?
Yes.
And-
Yes, there is.
Okay, so it's in the budget, it's not exceeding the ability to pay.
No, because there are two separate pots of money. Right? Like I said, the legal fees are being paid by the wages that we submit for your wages that we submit for reimbursement. Dave's wages are paid directly from ARPA. They're submitted and reimbursed from ARPA. So they're 100% reimbursed.
But we had your budget to pay the executive director without our,
Correct.
I'm just trying to understand how we're down to that amount and that we have sufficient with the amount of legal fees that you stated just the last meeting.
Sorry, see,
Yeah, the last meeting was like $160,000 unpaid.
right, so we received the $28,000 credit, we paid $30,000. I'd have to look into the different ways.
And the credit was for what?
The credit was for overcharges, so our contract says that the legal, that they're not gonna bill us more than $350 an hour for any legal
This
fees.
is the one I asked about.
I'm not sure, no.
The one I-
Well,
Yes,
oh, yeah,
he checked after you asked. So the credit was given to correct the pay rate.
And it was 28,000. Well, I'm glad I asked.
Could we,
No,
The reason I'm
sorry.
bringing this up now is because of the urgent message about our finances. And also, so you're rescinding your message, urgent message about it.
there will come a day.
Right.
In the next. Depending on how, again, at 13,000 a month. There will come a day in the next 6 months. Where we cannot pay $13,000 a month in legal. And that day, obviously, changes. If we get an FMIT reimbursement, that day could change to 9 months from now. Okay, but yeah, with a $30,000 credit for, and then obviously a payment. So again, there's going to come a day, but that day is still coming. It's never been urgent, right? It's just, there's going to come a day where we cannot guarantee that we can pay any legal fees incurred, whatever the amount is. Right now, again, we've received a bill for 13,000 because of the litigation and things like that. We have the ARPA funds available to pay it. There will come a day where we do not have that.
But it's gonna come quick. I mean, that's-
Well,
so,
like I said, the question-
I do sense a little bit of urgency there because I feel like, it's gonna.
I'll just say, remember, I mean, so if we spend this all, if we continue at this rate where we're going and we come to this day, whether it be, like I said, 6 months from today, we have no reserves. We have no excess funds in our bank account. Right? We started, when we started 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, we had $100,000 in our bank account of excess funds. We'll have no funds left over. There'll be no extra funds. If we continue to December 2024, every dollar from ARPA is committed to paying legal fees. Okay, I mean, so.
I understand everybody's concern, but I think this is a better conversation for our budget workshop. We can bring all this up and discuss it in full. And I think let's hold off on discussion for that right now, until the budget workshop before we discuss it. And that's what the workshop is going to be, just total budget discussion, so we have plenty of time to do it. I don't want to drag things out.
Yeah, the reason I agree with you, the reason I brought up again is that, and also in David's contract, which is renewing, it says if we don't provide notice, it automatically renews. And so we can't renew a contract without having that discussion. And so I think we need to tell him we don't want to.
When we're supposed to auto review it, is it a date? Not a date, is it?
The contract. I'm not concerned about it.
Might be August. Yeah. Okay.
I'll just say we've had the same cadence where that at some point when the ARPA funds run out, we don't have no funding available for his position.
Right.
And we've had the discussion of what date that could be.
I think both the attorney contract and David's gives us 60-day notice. So we have 2 months once we decide. anymore. But, it was the auto renewal piece that started me, because if you can't commit to a year, it's really 6 months from now. Then I was just concerned that that would pass and they would be. And they want to make a change.
I think all this is for 20. Contract. I have to look at it again. Well, okay, so our budget on our screen. Yeah, so, yeah, 2 months. Even have to do a workshop.
Yeah, if you require the 60 days. we
Yeah.
can do it now. Okay. So we're good with no auto renewal.
Okay, very good. All right, let's move on. Customs and border. Do you want to wait and talk about that when your workshop?
Either way, what I could do is I can explain why I had this added to it, and it's because of the continual dialogue that I've had with CBP. Basically, they're saying that they're tired of the can being kicked and there's nothing being done. And I went by and got a copy of the lease. Dave showed up a little bit later in the meeting. But there's one thing here that I want to express to the board, because I want you to be aware of what they're looking at. And that is that at the expiration of this term, the lease will automatically renew on a year-to-year basis upon the anniversary of the commencement date each year thereafter for 3 years, additional year, but not beyond April 19, 2024. The reason I read that is because we've already been through the extensions, so there's no more. And I was informed with the conversation with Steve that the current facility that Customs is in does not meet in any shape, fashion, or form what Customs requires. So they're looking for some kind of movement. Are we going to look at a new facility? Or are we going to sit down with them and renegotiate the current facility? I don't think that's going to be feasible, because they've already said it doesn't meet their criteria. So I want you to be aware that they're going to be looking for something. And there's a 90-day clause. It says unless or until the government gives at least 90 days notice in writing of its intent not to renew to the leaseholder. So we can either go to them ahead of time and say, look, there's just no way that we can do this. Or they're going to come toward the end of this year with a 90-day notice and say, we're not going to be there.
Well, I can tell you right now that we can't build a new facility. That's not going to happen. Probably won't happen within 10 or 20 years. Just unless something changes with the operator getting more money. You know, the money's the issue. It always has been. And I can tell you, and whatever they want to do, they're going to do.
I think that it would behoove this board to look at this and let's go to them. Let's don't make them come to us. Let's be upfront and say, look, there's just no way. Now, if we can work something out with the current facility to where you stay on and, you know, we'll see what we can do to make this work. But I understand their concern about space. I mean, I have some ideas, but until the board wants to move in that direction, I'm going to refrain from expressing those. But I think that we need to get with the CBP, and if the board decides that this is definitive, then
And
that's
I
what we
think
need.
you communicated that to them.
Yeah, we've had conversations along the way. As you know, at one point when we were in the master planning process, there was a plan to try to fund office space for them as part of a multi-purpose building that essentially went away in the cruise. And when that happened, I communicated that to Director Parrott. And so we'll continue to work with them to see what can be done, and talking with the operator, make sure that, you know, they're still continue to provide the necessary services. So, and I'm sure Nelson is correct. I mean, time is ticking and at some point decisions have to be made. And so,
Well, we need to
We're
have a
working.
conversation with the Highlands, include Butch in that conversation. What they gotta understand, we had a plan. And it was a plan that included the cruise ship business. And that's gone away now. So that plan is out the window. So we have no option to build a new facility.
I thought we discussed the idea of finding another federal entity or compatible agency that could have the facility.
we haven't been successful in, you know, the consolidation of those federal agencies took place in Jacksonville. So the Customs and Coast Guard share a federal building now in Jacksonville, but they would conceivably, if they don't operate directly here, they would just operate out of there. So we just got to evaluate that option and see, you know, that.
The Coast Guard recently did a huge event in Fernandina where they engaged with, you know, the local community. They toured the vessel. They talked about water safety, what the Coast Guard does, how they rescue people offshore. And it was, you know, a full week, I think, of activities. Did you engage with anybody?
Not right now.
I mean, it seems like that was the first time that happened. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what generated that activity, but they did jointly fund, did jointly fund a joint Coast Guard Customs facility up in Birmingham. That they operate out of. So I have not heard that they're either out of space or cannot service burning out of that space, but again, we've got some work to do. We've got to work with the operators to see what options there are. But as Jim said, you know, we don't have a readily available funding source.
if we wanted to pursue federal grant funding to fund something for the Coast Guard, what is that?
It would take in my estimation, it would take a special appropriation. We have to work with our congressional delegation and probably the state, and I'm not sure that either entity, the state or fed would fund something like that 100%, which is what it would take. And then we would have to, again, evaluate from a business perspective and understand whether that, if OPA has a federal ask or state ask to assist us with something, is that what we want to spend that legislative activity on or not? And so I'm certainly open to working with the team to develop a legislative strategy if that's the direction the commission wants to go, but it would take something of that magnitude to get it going.
So if we funded this facility and we were able to meet there and have our office there, that would save us $500 a month at least, right? And so for OPA's operations, that would actually save us money, right? If we were able to have our offices there and have meetings there.
You mean if they moved out?
No, if we had a new facility that was funded.
Well, sure, that's the plan was to build something for CBP and include us in that facility.
Is having Customs and Border Patrol in on site, like in your experience, valuable?
The only concern I have is if they come back and say, okay, now Port of Fernandina is not a port of entry.
I don't think they can do that.
It was brought up
I know
in the conversation, so
I've had discussions with legislators and they don't. think
I would highly recommend, this is why I say, let's don't wait till the last minute because some bad things can happen. Let's go ahead and take this talk to them, find out in the event these officers go back to Jacksonville, where does the port of entry stand? Is it going to be kept intact and just operated through Jacksonville, or are they going to just cease at the port of entry?
Governor will allow them to designate this in the port of entry. I'm pretty confident about that, but David, if you and Butch get together, let's get a meeting with Coast Guard and have this discussion and see where we can go, see what the best plan is. You okay with that, Butch?
Now you'd have to do that with CBP because that's two different entities.
I'm sorry, see.
Yeah, that's two different entities. Coast Guard's gonna tell you, as long as you don't turn a ship over out there, we're fine.
Yeah.
But CBP is gonna be the one that calls that. board.
Right, that's what I meant, CBP, not. Yes, yeah.
So,
Okay,
yes, sir.
all right, you got anything else with that?
That's all I have on that one, then I'll catch the committee.
Very good. All right, let's move on to the new business, the security contract, David.
Yeah, so in preparation for the new budget coming up, when we approved the security contract last year, it was a one-year contract, but the commission authorized me to try to negotiate extensions with the contractor if it makes sense. And so I reached out to them and asked if they would be interested in at least a one-year renewal and for the current rate firm. They came back and said, yeah, we can do that. But what we really like to do is at least put in the agreement that in 6 months after renewal, so like in February, March, we would at least sit down then and see whether or not a rate increase was justified or not. So they presented an amendment to their current contract, which essentially holds the rates currently charged as they are currently. And then there's a provision that we would have the 6-month review just to make sure that they're still able to maintain their staff and staffing levels. Reviewed it with Butch and his team because that's a cost that ultimately gets pushed over to them. It's Butch has been in agreement with that. And so we have Patrick review the amendment and from a contractual perspective, he was fine. So we're recommending approval of that amendment to the existing contract.
What's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, let me just add something to that because I don't want anybody to be called off. As I've shared in some of my security commission committee reports, they have had a change in the security supervision there. And I sit down with Mr. Kyle Clark and we talked to one of the former site supervisors. And for him to come back and take that position, there was going to be an hourly increase in his wage. And we had a conversation and I guess Kyle went back to Butch and his staff. And they agreed that if they could get that site supervisor back because he brings a lot of experience with him. And he's worked there before for a number of years. So it was agreed that we would increase or his salary would be increased up, I think $4 or something an hour to get him back as the site supervisor. So I just want the commissioners to know that this was something that was being discussed at the same time, but also that Savage Services was in the meetings and agreed to this appointment of the site supervisor. I mean, he's in place, so everything is working. Just so you know that there was an increase in the cost, but Savage said that they would cover those costs to get him back as a site. But you want to add anything to that? I mean, I think it's pretty much self-explanatory on that, but I wanted you to be aware of it.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the agreement?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion been made to approve, then seconded to approve the agreement with Allied Universal. Any further discussion?
I would just like to comment something for what you're saying about the participation of operator. It's consistent with the things I hear from everybody.
Yeah.
From employees who I've known for years, report to people who live in the neighborhood, that they really appreciate what you brought to the morale, the community, and so thank you for that.
Thank you. We've got a great team out there that spreads the love and joy throughout the community.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carried. All right. lease agreement, Tech Center.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, as you know, everybody knows, we're being evicted out of our current state, that the tax collectors been gracious enough, over the years to provide us. And so we've been working for quite some time now, trying to identify some alternatives. In working with the city and asking, for their assistance, they present us the opportunity to lease a office suite at Tech Center, which is on 11th, in front of Dana. It's a old high school that's been renovated and has city offices and other nonprofits located in the building. They presented us with an office suite that has 3 separate offices, the reception area, and then 2 offices, one that can be used for an office for myself, and then another one I can use as a conference room for one individually or small group. Small conference. It also provides us access when we need to the gymnasium there for either our commission meetings or other public meetings that we might have. And there's another conference room in the building that we can also use for slightly larger groups. They presented us a lease agreement that I circulated to each of you. It's initially a 3-month term, gets on the fiscal year with everybody else, and then it renews annually. I think it's an incredibly fair rate that they're affording us for that space, and it would give us a presence in Bernardina and make our operation more efficient. Without it, we're going to have to rent someplace to put our files and file cabinets anyway. I did not price out storage units, but I know my personal unit that I rent is $150 a month. It's not cheap, and so I think what we're getting here is again a very generous offer on behalf of the city. If approved tonight, the time frame would be, if you guys approve it, we would go before the city commission, hopefully at their first meeting in July, for them to approve it, and then it would become effective upon their signature. We need to move out of the space of tax collector on the 23rd.
23rd, by the 23rd.
So Rosanna has arranged for a mover to move our stuff on the 22nd. The city has graciously again offered to allow us to move at least all our stuff into that space, with the expectation that the city would approve the lease. We would not take physical presence, occupancy of it until afterwards. Till the city approves the lease. It could be the first week of July after the first meeting, and the July after the holiday. I'm not sure. Commissioner Bacon moved to the 5th. Okay, so we need to be on the 5th. So presumably by the end of that week, they will follow. I think physical occupancy of it. So we recommend approval of it. I think it would be a good operation for us.
So, just to comment, I think that's a pretty darn good, rate that they're extending to us. I think, for what we're getting, I think it's wonderful. Thanks to the city for working with us on this. And I do think if we can look into the gym, maybe the setup, I'm not too familiar with it, but I know with the issues that seem to arise with our location here, maybe it's time that we can consider setting up a permanent home there for our meetings, assuming that they don't have it used, gym used, used during the time there. But no, I'll make a motion to approve. I think it's great. Thank you for trying to be patient. It's been a long process, but thank you for working on it.
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded to accept the lease for our new office space in the city. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. Motion to the new home for those.
I don't have any discussion with it. Hopefully not going to be able to vote, but I just want to say that school was a great story of the city taking over ownership of an historic building and seeking grant funding to get to keep it habitable.
They've done a great
It's
job.
more than half, I mean, it's a very nice.
Very nice.
job. Very comfortable, state that they're providing.
You're right about the being late. I think we set something that they've got screened. Do what we need to do. Yes. Another discussion from another time. All right. Very good.
That's all that I have.
New business opportunities. Commissioner Hill with the third.
Yes, we asked for this at the last meeting, because it's been a year since the executive director was hired, and we asked for some type of revenue report, plan for future revenue for everyone.
So as I mentioned at the last meeting, continuing to look at opportunities, obviously, we talked about the real estate, potential sale, that we're working on. I've also continued conversations with other waterfront interests, what we can do to improve the utilization of the one piece of property that we own separate from the terminal along the waterfront, to get a better utilization out of that. So we've got some conversations that are taking place, nothing that I can report yet as close to a done deal, but some very encouraging conversations that are taking place. And there are some other, creative things that I'm looking at that again are very preliminary. That they're just not right for a conversation at this point. We've been working with the operator on a couple of opportunities, again, that are not yet ready for public disclosure. We're still in the negotiation stage. But it's something that, I'm keenly aware of the need for generating additional revenue, but from a personal perspective, but more importantly, from Oakland's perspective. And continue to try to identify the opportunity.
So I just want to remind the board that when we hired David, that one of the number one tasks is to find a remedy to fund this position. I know that he's worked really hard to try to identify ways that we could work with the operator and bring business to the board. And they have their own process for identifying customers and really don't have to accept that. We've explored a lot of other revenue ideas that didn't turn out to be viable. And so it's not anything against what David has done or the effort he's put forth. But I think we need to take this very seriously, that we spent an entire year trying to develop some sort of sustainable business model. And we still haven't developed any revenue. We have some bunkering fees. We have some board administrative fee, but it's not rising to the level. It's still under.
Yeah, it'll grow as the business grows. And again, those are fees that did not exist previously. So we'll continue to chip away at it.
Anything outside of the board?
Pardon?
Are you looking at anything outside of the board?
Well, I mean, clearly I'm having conversations with all the economic development interests within the county, both the economic development board staff as well as the county economic development group. There's one of the opportunities I think this commission saw early on was to offer our ability to do conduit financing. And so, we explored that a bit, had conversations with the folks who were directly involved in the previous bond issues to see, is that something that makes sense as a business model going forward. And from everybody that I've spoken with, the opportunities seem hit and miss at best. And, we'll certainly continue to promote that business. We added it to our website as a capability and linked it to the county's economic development website. So we're continuing to pursue those types of opportunities, but they take a long time to materialize and without resources of our own to go out and build something or to have real estate. I mean, right now, our primary asset is what we currently own. That's the work our name. And so that's the easiest way to generate revenue off of what we've already got and build up those capabilities. But it's certainly not something that we're not paying attention to. We are actively having conversations with folks. Tom Callahan's been working on an economic development opportunity that, I've had conversations with them about and letting our support to try to figure out how to make that deal happen for them. So these are all works in progress. And it's time for it.
Okay, well, at the last meeting, we had consensus that we wanted some type of business plan. So we can get together with Pierre to figure out what that would entail and what the specifics would be in order to our ongoing revenue needs to do that. And that was a month ago. And so I'm not hearing anything that's changed since last month. And I know two of you were not here when we hired David, but that was what we discussed at that time. Was that the number one thing in his role as executive director would be to raise the revenue to fund his position. And I don't think it's responsible on our part to not at least have a plan to get from where we are to where we want to be. I think we need that plan. Because we've run a lot of, dead ends, and then we need to come up with something that is.
And I think just to Mr. Bill's point, and I agree, I mean, that's a big part of what we're able to do isn't just within the board of Fernandina. And kind of Butch does an incredible job, he and his team, and run that. I think we got to look outside. We got to look at what those opportunities are going to be. And we have capabilities, and we talk about this. I mean, we can go out there and talk about it and have these conversations, but you're not really seeing a whole lot of action. And I think that's what's concerning. And so, yeah, I think we need a plan. We need some goals and some things that we can, try to achieve. Because yeah, it is concerning. And it seems like we're not really looking outside of that little niche in front of you.
I can tell you that we are looking outside of the forefront. David has worked hard to do that. You can't force businesses to come here. You can't force people to use your capabilities, our capabilities. I know he's worked with the Economic Development Board, he's worked with other governments around the county. He's doing his best, but if it comes to the point that we can't pay him anymore, then that'll take care of itself. So if you can come up with some sort of business plan, I don't know what it would be.
Well, that's not
what you're doing.
that's not also the side that the better part of the first year was spent trying to what master plan completed and not get ahead of that process either. And the major component of that and the business plan part of it was to generate revenue out of the small crucial one. A lot of effort was put into that. And more than just a plan, I mean, there was opportunities that were identified and so forth. So when that went away, clearly that was away, significant growth opportunity for us. So we'll continue to be.
I'm really struggling with that as when we first discussed hiring you, this board was very honest that if that was the only idea, then that wasn't enough.
I'm not suggesting, Commissioner, that is our only opportunity. What I'm suggesting is that with limited resources and a lot of demand, we're continuing to run as far as we can. I'm happy to talk with you as I have another occasion about specific projects that I'm working on that I hope will result in additional revenues for this board. But if I'm not gonna speak with in a public meeting and talk about them, until they're at a point where it's ready for public consumption. So I'm happy to talk with any and all of you online about the other opportunities that are out there. There are a couple that, you know, again, you got to keep shooting to get something. I just want to that.
I would just say, let's remember that during the Fort Bernardino's report from the operator, he introduced us to a new commercial guy that's going to be out there beating the pavement, so to speak. But in that same discussion and introduction, he advised us of potential new business with Green Coffee. That's what I think Commissioner Hill was looking for. I'm looking for that because when I look at this, I get nervous. We have a physical responsibility. Okay. And I can't see the necessity to have a port director on our side when you got a commercial director on Savage's side. To me, that's just a redundancy. Okay. So we've got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of soul searching to do between now and the 28th. And I hope that we can come together at that time and make the hard decision, because there's going to be some hard decisions to make. We're picking up some additional spending, but we haven't got any additional revenue, so we're going to have to do a balancing act. So I will leave you with that and look forward to that meeting on Monday.
Anyone else? I think what Commissioner Hill is looking for is something outside of the port throughout the rest of the county. That's what we really, but as David said, the finances are at a point where we can't develop anything. We've got to rely on businesses coming in here that contributes to the Port of Bernardino. That's tough. It's tough to do in this economy. I know Economic Development Board is working all the time to try to bring business in Nassau County. They bring small businesses, grocery stores, small hotels, things like that. But we need some manufacturing. And I know the Economic Development Board is working hard to try to bring that to Nassau County. And she mentions us every time somebody says, well, what do you got there for us? She mentions the port. And a lot of people are interested in the port. But to get them to come here is not, we have no means to do that. All we can do is offer our service. And I think David is doing the best he can, but like I said, our finances will dictate whether we can keep him or not. We've got enough, and I think Pierre will tell you to go one more year, but after that, unless we get revenue, it's all over.
Well, I think, so we were presented with a unique opportunity as the ARPA. I mean, a port director to business development director had been a long discussion about this position. Yeah, that's been a long discussion. Obviously, the ARPA funds provide us with a unique opportunity. We knew when we hired David that there's no money just sitting there where you can apply for grants and they're going to pay for operating expenses, right? And without any match contributions or anything like that. So we knew it was going to be tough, and these things take a long time to put together and things like that. So again, there's been a long commissioner expressed need for, hey, we need a port director. We want a port director. Think of the things we could do. Again, the ARPA funds are the reason that we've been able to offer this opportunity to see if it works. I mean, obviously, when the ARPA funds run out, yes, if we haven't identified a new opportunity and new revenue, I don't consider that a failure. I consider that these timelines are long in the business that you're in. People, companies don't just decide to offer, bonds, kind of, that's a long decision timeline to invest, because remember, I mean, those bonds have to be paid off. There has to be revenue. There has to be, so these are not decisions that are made in a year or in, from the point of contact. We hope that, through David's work, something may come to fruition in 5-10 years that we don't know about. So, but again, I mean, I think this was a long expressed, we need a port director, we need a business development director. And obviously the ARPA funds are still available. They're going to run out. Yes. And, by the end of next year, the next fiscal year, there probably won't be any more ARPA funds anyway. So I think the question is, what can we do with this port director in this next year? Again, there may not be any revenue that's generated, but whether it be community outreach, whether it be business development, whether it be reaching out to some of those companies, whether, creating those opportunities, creating those links with legislators, whatever, kind of what can we do to get the most out of this, without a focus exclusively on revenue. I mean, the kind of business that you're in doesn't generate. No, I can't go out next month and create, $100,000 revenue opportunity. It just doesn't, doesn't happen that way in the business that you're in.
I talk to David almost every day. He would tell you that we have 30-minute, an hour conversations about things he's done, who he's talked to. David, what I'd like you to do is go back as far as you can and list those people, the meetings you've had with other people, community people, legislators, the best your memory will serve to do. And present that to the board, make sure we show everybody that you're not just sitting out there doing nothing.
Well, again,
I know what you're doing.
well, again, the position of executive director, while a key focus obviously is on business development that pays the bills, ultimately. Hopefully each month when I report back what we're working on, there's a lot more activity that board director is involved with that doesn't directly relate to revenue. And so what I have done, and I'm happy to show at some point, is summary of all the activities that we have been involved. I have been involved with you guys over the last year. Some are revenue generating opportunities, and some are just running the business of running the port fund. So, but I see that happening more as part of the annual review process. But my contract takes place, I think, in August. So, a little bit of time there. But I think if you have ideas for opportunities that are out there that I haven't thought about or uncovered at this point, I'm happy to, chase anything new ground with you guys and all around the community as well. And if you know of opportunities that I'm missing, I'm more than happy to chase, what makes sense. We are resource constrained. I have very limited budget for advertising, for developing plans, we are, there's money that takes my time. And so it's tough to generate those types of leads and opportunities when you don't have the resources that the Savage team has to go out and recruit businesses and things like that. So the best opportunities are to leverage other organizations, and that's what we're trying to do.
We representing us on the board of the platform, meeting, just had a meeting in the chamber, and help you with whatever, if you're getting your footprint out there and getting established, you can't just build the wall and wall there. I mean, you got to put it for a time. So we laid some foundation, but understand what Commissioner Deal is asking for. You want to see something.
You and I had a conversation today about a conversation we had with someone locally that may be a business opportunity. We can't discuss that right now because something that, you just can't put out there in public. But that may take a year to do. So that's the things he works on. But I understand. We're limited in, we don't have revenues, we can't pay him beyond another year. So that's something we've got to take into consideration. And some other avenue that we could use that in. We've spoken here for years about court director.
When Laura Bell was the director, do you recall what we paid to the?
$10,000. Yeah, and that's what she asked. We're going to pay her directly. She didn't know to that economic development board, and I'll just work through that. So, but she didn't bring the revenue either. No, nothing.
But she did bring grants.
Well, we get grants all the time. We can make me more grants than David's got for it.
Well, she did some of the work that Pierre now does. Because I was the lawyer.
What work did she do that she didn't?
The reimbursement,
Oh, reimbursement. Yeah.
that's the mission of
That's not bringing revenue to the board. All right, that's where we stand right now. We'll discuss it further at our workshop. And I'll let you know where that workshop's gonna be, through email. All right, let's go on to committee reports.
Are we gonna announce the workshop?
Yeah.
Where's the-
You did not say the location, and it's going to be at the college.
Well, we don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
We've got to get it okay with the college,
But we did the date.
but yeah, I think that's where it's gonna be, but we got,
Okay, confirmed.
yes, it's confirmed with them, but we've got to sign the paperwork and do all that. So,
Right.
and she's got it there, so I'll sign it tonight. But that's most likely where it's gonna be. And from 3 to 5,
On the 20.
28. And time is 3 to 5. Patrick will be there, we'll all be there, I hope. Okay? Let's move on to committee reports, port security, you got anything else?
Just one item, I was out at the port yesterday talking to the, site supervisor. He settled in, he had no issues to comment about. I also talked to him on the phone today just as a follow-up, and he was good. This guy worked for me, when I was the terminal manager there, as the FSO. So I think everything will be pretty much settled in with that. As far as the customs house, I do have an update on the IT, the inside wiring and connecting to their servers and their equipment. They were able to find a contractor, and they're in the process of determining what their schedule is going to be, because they will have to take the old stuff down to hook up the new stuff, and also they're working out scheduling on that. I talked to Steve, and he said that there's no other issues at this time with the facility, so that's a good thing.
Did they find a contractor to do all that?
They did.
Found it.
They found a contractor a couple weeks ago or so. They located one. They're in the process of working out the schedule.
Was it a government contractor or did they want?
He didn't say, he did not indicate. He said they just found a contractor, and they were moving forward with that project to get it taken care of. I did have a conversation today with the captain of the tug. He informed me that based on the survey that was done on the tug, all of the major issues that needed to be taken care of have been taken care of on the tug. That he had just a few minor repairs left, some changing of batteries and stuff, which is pretty much superficial. But he did advise me that he wanted me to know that Savage has worked with him straight across the board. Whatever he needed, he got. So I told him that I would bring that to the commissioners tonight. And Butch, I appreciate that because it took a lot of load off of that captain, that whenever he said he needed something, he got it. So thank you for that. Moving on with that, I want to remind the commissioners that the drop dead date is August 31st. That is approaching. I asked the captain today, did he have a dry dock date for me that the tug would be traveling to have that inspection done, and he didn't. So I'll work with you on that. But that drop dead date is that it has to be inspected. The paperwork has to be signed off by the Coast Guard. Everything has to be put to rest prior to August 31st, or the tugboat goes into an out of service. Okay, just wanted to make sure we all understand that. Going down to the equipment and the facility, the number 9 Liebherr container crane still is suffering from some electrical issues on the spreader and the hoist, where we're being told that, or I'm being told that it will be worked out. They're getting closer to it. For the repair, for the final operation of that crane. Number 10 has no issues. That is another Liebherr container crane that has no issues. I was out there when it was being used to unload a wood pulp vessel. So it was functioning properly. The mobile harbor, the big blue crane, there's no issues with that. All of the OPA trucks from 619 to 624 was all being used. There was no mechanical issues with those, so they were all online. Going back to the warehouse number 3 roof and the rail dock canopy, I was in the discussion with that, and I understand that there's supposed to be some kind of paperwork coming to OPA about the cost and everything. So we'll have to take a look at that once we receive it. And which, if you can help me out with that, whatever's out there, just give us some direction on where it needs to go. Outside of that, just remember that the canopy over the rail dock was storm damage for the most part, and that warehouse 3 is the corrosion issue. Okay, so that separates those two. Outside of that, everything looked good. There was 2 operations, actually 1 operation going yesterday, 2 going today. So those guys were moving. I stood out there for quite a while and watched them operate. Brings back good memories. I worked alongside of those guys for many years, some of them. But I just want to thank you that your guys are doing a good job. They are. So we'll move forward with that. Outside of that, that's all I have for my committee report.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. FDOT, Dave, you want to talk about FDOT for a minute? Dave, I mean, what's the name of leaving?
Daniel Hubbard.
Daniel Hubbard. Daniel Hubbard is moving up to
Austin.
Yeah, Austin. And he'll be working with some Seaport.
Morgan Kenyatta Lee, who was over above him, is also leaving FDOT.
We're okay with FDOT with no.
That's the relationship with those guys.
Corps of Engineers, I think they're finished with their dredging. So that's all taken care of. Economic Development, Commissioner Cole.
I did mention it last time, we had a signed document with somebody at the Crawford Dam. And they have a 90-day window that they could renew and exercise, and 2 weeks out, 2 days, they exercise that. So the contract that we had with somebody was going to bring 400 jobs to the Crawford Dam. That fell through cracks. However, we still got others that we're looking at, and some of them look very, very positive, but not as positive as that one looked. So we'll see how things go. And, some of those that are looking at the port at Crawford Island have also looked at the port, what capabilities or what areas we can use in there. That's all I've got for economic development. Emergency management, nothing to report on.
Did they say why?
It was the owner's personal decision.
Well, we got a better offer somewhere.
We haven't heard. Well, yeah, and it could, possibility it could still come back, but we at this point.
PCC, Commissioner Taylor.
No report, unless David, do you have anything?
The only thing, I was at the last DCC meeting, and there was a big push made for the Clean Rules Coalition. There's money available for conversions to the alternative fuel. So I reached out first to Butch and his team to see if that would be something that they might be interested in the process of setting up a meeting. With some of the TPO staff, to see what those opportunities are, whether the equipment that person is going to be looking at would be qualified for that. Okay. Anything on
PBO, we had a meeting, last Thursday. Thursday, we're going to do the report there. Short meeting. Yeah,
I think we set a record, 47-minute meeting.
You got that?
I did, and I noted that Jack Sport has new representative.
Very much. I don't know much about her.
This was recently appointed, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's one, Daniel Lee. Yeah, he takes his place. And we have, actually, on the TPO board, we have 4 new members. And matter of fact, one of them is the, Mark McCann, he's for the, Mayport and Naval Stations. He's the representative for that.
Yeah, Jack Sport announced at the meeting 2 new investments in the port of Jacksonville. Both were like one was beverage related. And then I forgot what the other one was, but it was like a large facility, pretty large manufacturing facility, with certain thousands square feet.
But they have the room and we can do that. No, I did yet. We're getting there. I know Wildlife is working with some wildlife in their industrial park. Right now, areas for on-site buildings, and as soon as they get, I guarantee you, as soon as they build them and get something, it's gonna be cool.
One thing I wanted to add, from the TPO meeting is FDOT had a group there at the meeting that's focusing on distracted drivers and behavior modification on young people. And so I connected with Ryan, his last name, who's heading up the initiative. Is called Target Zero Outreach. And what they do is they go into schools and they're in the lunchroom talking with kids with a couple that was tragically affected by a distracted driver. And the woman, essentially had to learn how to walk. And I think both of her parents that perished in the accident, or 2 relatives of her perished. And so it's very impactful to young people, and they do know improvements in safety. Seatbelts, something they measure before and after their presentation, but it's really more focused on texting while driving on these and these. So I did connect them with the Fernandina Beach High School, and I can share their contact information. They reached out the very same day with an entire team of people, and then they kind of take it from there. So if you have any contacts across the county with both the schools, I happen to know that is sponsor, so that's why I did that. If you know anyone like that, or you could just, forward the email along. What every thoughtful young person behind the wheel is a good thing, right? So
Yes.
I'll share that with Rosanna.
I think we know as well, and then we'll have connections with him for, for SNASA. That's our chamber commissioner.
Yes, so I spoke with Regina Duncan, and she would like to give an update in the August 9th meeting, so I've already asked her. There's also a business after hours tomorrow at First Port City Bank. Sounds like it's going to be good fun.
All right, community outreach, anybody? Of the city, city, haven't made any contact with the city. I know we're in discussion with the pot payment And I think Patrick will have some news about that soon. And that's all we got. Community outreach, anybody?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on something. The school district recently held or did like an entrepreneur camp. And it was for middle school kids. I actually tried to get my son in there. He said no, maybe next year, but there was, it was pretty neat. I went last week. They had it out at FSCJ. But they had little stations set up where these kids, they created businesses, and they had the posters, and they had flyers and business cards, and you go up and you would ask them, all right, tell me about your business. What are you doing? And you had one guy that was like a local courier service. It was just an incredible concept and idea that he created on his own. And then you had some, pet sitters and different things like that, bakeries. But they put together essentially this business plan of how much they're going to charge, what their overhead's going to be, where they're going to be located. And so to get them thinking about that at such a young age, I thought was really, really cool. And then at the end, I think at the end of the entrepreneur fair that they had, the kids got together and they, watched the movie The Founder. If you haven't seen that, it's great film. But I just thought it was kind of neat. And so kudos to the school district for putting that together. It was a great idea, for the young people.
Very good. Anyone else? All right, administrative office manager report.
My report is included in the packet unless anybody has any questions. I do have some updates for the board. You mentioned the budget workshop. It will be at the FSCJ on June 28th at 3 p.m. And I don't know if I need board directions to pay the $20 for custodial fee. That's how much they're charging us for, $20.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
That's all we have to say.
They do require a crowd manager for the event. So do you want me to do it or David to do that? It's basically just to check the facility before the meeting and make sure it's safe. And they have a form here that,
You can do that.
okay.
Yeah,
And so,
It's more-
well, I can be too.
I'm really thank you for
So just to go back to the legal credits. So we received a credit of 5,200 for the invoices that we've paid so far. That's from February to September 2022. So the 28,000 credit is I think it's the total of all the invoices that were corrected with the 350 pay rate, but just 5,200. And also I do want to address the agenda posting on May 10th meeting. It was noted that OPA did not post the agenda on time. And so doing my due diligence, I asked Mrs. Bach, city attorney, and Mr. Kruchowski to review the Florida statute 120.525 and 120.52. And they both recommended that the statutes does not apply to OPA because of the definition. So just so that we're on the same page, we don't have to post the agenda 7 days prior. But having said that, I will try. That's why I give deadlines for agenda items
Well, the city does it, they do it
as a courtesy. And so OPA should too.
yeah. If we can,
So yes, I try to post it.
post it, it's gonna change.
Right,
That's okay too.
right. And
7 days. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, she puts a lot of trust to do it. You gotta get yourself into it, though. The basic. Someone. Would be good. Yeah. Yeah, it's not, what she's saying is not required by law that we have to do it. We'll try to do it.
Right.
She doesn't do that.
You do a fabulous job.
Thank you.
Around-
I try.
I'm sorry. I want to talk about legal things just for a minute. I want you all to understand. Patrick charges us for every phone call we make to him, for every conversation we have, for every paper he has to look over. If you call him and talk to him 5 minutes, he charges you. And that builds up over the week if we call him several times, and some of us do. I call him at least once a week, just get his opinion about things, and ask him where we stand and how things are looking. So be careful that you don't just frivolously call him requesting things. I know we need research on a lot of stuff, and he's our attorney, and we should do that, but we may have to come to an understanding with him that in the future that we need some justification for why he charges us $50 for a phone call. You know, maybe he could do that. We could change that aspect of his contract and see that we pay him a basic fee, and then anything else that you do is going to cost us, and it adds up. If you look at the invoices, it adds up. So just be careful.
Is that the new business that you added to the new business? Or is the legal invoices?
Legal enforcement. Yeah, I think you just talked about it.
The new business at the end?
Yes, that's item number 11.
Yeah, so on that subject, I did want to request that I did go through a section of, group of invoices, which is basically starting from January to now. And that's when I noticed the $5,000 or so. But one thing I did notice is that sometimes there would be a call with the chairman and David, and then someone else who is not on this board. And what I would just suggest is that if there is a meeting where that could be one call, that should be one call.
Absolutely.
And so just to do a little bit of advanced planning on our side, that if we need to have additional resources in a call, if we do a little homework ahead of the call, and don't ask for him to follow up and, talk with, he doesn't talk with multiple board members, but, if you could all be in one meeting, which everybody on those separate calls could have been in one call, that would have saved us, 2/3 of the bill. Another thing is that, when we asked him to prepare like a statement for the meeting, one of the statements that was read at one of the meetings was $900. Because he billed, multiple times. So, really the things that we bring to the meeting as commissioners, that should be what we contribute. He's already charging for the time that he's at the meeting. Just to be thoughtful about that. But that's all I wanted to say about that. But then I also wanted to just ask, and I think that Baltimore would be willing to consider just a blanket discount on the invoices that have been billed thus far. And this is something that law firms sometimes offer to clients when, for example, there's a strategy that's proposed, and then, there's a lot of time spent on that strategy and then it's not successful. Or, if there's a particular, bit of work that you can point to and say, well, that didn't work out the way we thought it would. And then also just considering our overall financial situation, that we all know what our financial situation is every day. And so I think as a courtesy that they would consider a small discount. I haven't asked him for a specific number because I don't have the authority to do that. And so that's something for the board to set. That's what we might ask for.
I agree. Yeah, we've got to come to some understanding about the rates he charges us for things. I didn't realize it's $900 for that statement.
Well,
That's
He charges a very good rate for the associates too, and so it's possible that we could, ask him to go more on the associates. But, we do need to pay the invoices on time. I think, what Citizen Ross brought up, maybe it's not the issue, but we do need to pay the invoices, in a timely manner. Notwithstanding that that's not an issue.
That's why we're doing what he's agreed for us that we need to do, and that's what we're doing. All right,
So, would we be able to give here a percentage amount of, say, 15% of the invoices to request that and then see what they say?
Because it was Patrick that the budget work, stuff like that, prepared them to do.
I agree. The 28th, we'll discuss it. Patrick will be there, and we won't have to make phone calls to him to get charged at the meeting.
Are we proposing 15% off the outstanding invoices, or 15% off all of the invoices?
Not what's already been paid, right? Obviously, what's been paid is paid. It's just what has, the work that's been done that hasn't yet been paid.
Okay. Anything else to be brought before the commission?
Chairman, I do have two more updates.
Okay,
Sorry. The items for the port operator for his 1-year report, I only received one extra item to put on that list, so I will give him that list tomorrow. The change of open meeting date, the board decided to change it to 5 p.m. That's not going to happen because Chambers is not available. So it's still 6 p.m.
I had a meeting with the county, and she told me that, we can't move to 5 o'clock because they have meetings, and I haven't seen anybody meeting in this chamber at 5 o'clock since we've been meeting. They may at some point do it like 3 o'clock and not run over to 5 o'clock. That's what I was told, and so we have to live with that. But hopefully we'll take care of that situation soon. Okay, anything else coming for the meeting adjourned?
Yes.